Thank you, Chairwoman Davis. Madam Chairwoman, the recommendations contained in the subcommittee report to the full committee are a product of an open and very unusual bipartisan process. It has been a pleasure to work with you and your dedicated staff in developing them. I also want to thank our lead staff members, John Chaplin and Jeanette James. You've already highlighted the major points, but I would like to highlight some of the more important recommendations in the mark. I want to thank you for not only including in your mark my bill, H.R. 1864, to provide for a 3.4% basic pay raise for the military, but also for adopting a change in the matching fund requirements between the Department of Defense and the states for the National Guard Youth Challenge program. And I was telling Mr. Sands a moment ago that as we're sitting here and behind us we see the marching troops, one of the highlights for me is the Veterans Day Parade in Columbia, South Carolina, where the Youth Challenge program comes along. And as I'm sitting there watching, people would think that these are young people from a private elite military high school, when in fact, sadly, these are at-risk children who come from broken homes. But Madam Chairwoman, they are given a chance. Many of them will go into the military and have extraordinarily fulfilling lives. And so thank you for including the Youth Challenge program. I would also note the discretionary authority to increase the size of the Army by 30,000 people in 2011 or 2012. Such growth would significantly improve the Army's ability to deploy fully manned units, something that is now challenged by the large number of non-deployable personnel on the Army's rolls. Our effort to oversee the process to account for our prisoners of war and missing in action is reflected in your mark. For the first time ever, the Department of Defense will have the statutory mandate to account for all the missing from World War II, Korea, the Cold War, the Vietnam era, the Persian Gulf War, and other conflicts designated by the Secretary of Defense. Furthermore, the DoD will be tasked to significantly increase the number of identifications from the current 70 per year to 200 by 2015 and subsequently 350 per year by 2020. Other initiatives I will mention that I again appreciate being included, expanding chiropractic health care to all active duty military members, extending TRICARE Reserve Select to members of the retired reserve who are qualified for a non-regular retirement but not yet age 60, otherwise known as, quote, the gray area retirees, and requiring a medical examination prior to the involuntary separation of service members with post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury. With all of the good things in this mark, I must communicate my disappointment that we were unable to adopt any provision containing mandatory spending. I know the lack of offsets forced you to take at least 3 provisions out of the mark. I'm also very disappointed that the Budget Committee failed to provide the mandatory headroom for President Obama's proposal that we would have allowed military personnel retired with disabilities, the so-called Chapter 61 retirees, to receive both their full military disability retired pay and VA disability pay. The Budget Committee's failure to favorably respond to both of the President's requests, as well as that of the committee, sends the wrong message to our disabled military retirees. Despite my reservations and concern, this is an excellent mark. I intend to support it, and I again want to thank you for your leadership, and I want to thank our colleagues for their input.